To break down the Ravens and what to expect from them in 2020, we are now joined by a man who played wide receiver in the league for 10 seasons, including 3 with the Ravens, helping Baltimore beat the Giants to win Super Bowl 35. He now serves as a Ravens analyst for WJZ in Baltimore, none other than Qadry Ismail. Qadry, you got Lance Meadow and Paul Dottino here on Giants.com, Big Blue Kickoff Live. Greatly appreciate the time today. Hope you and yours are safe and healthy. How's everything on your end?
Yeah, I appreciate you guys having me on, and I love every time I've done anything radio-wise, TV-wise, media-wise, and the introduction is Super Bowl champion, Super Bowl 35 champion, 34-7, New York Giants go down in defeat. Because, with that said, y'all got however many Super Bowl championships. However, without fail, Giant fans remember, the Ravens game. It was awful. I'm like, that set everybody up for Eli to come in, for Michael Strahan and the NASCAR defensive front to stop that ass of Tom Brady and company, and y'all wouldn't have got the 2 other Super Bowls from the Patriots had it not been for the 34-7 whooping. So, therefore, I feel like there are 3 Super Bowl championships tangentially I was a part of, and I feel good about it.
That is one way to put things in perspective.
It's really interesting, for sure.
Well, speaking of trying to win a Super Bowl, clearly the Ravens came very close last season, disappointing finish to their season, but the team comes back pretty much in full force. And let's start with the quarterback position, Qadry, because it goes without saying Lamar Jackson, very impressive in 2019, his first full season as the starter, won MVP. My big question is, Qadry, how much credit does Greg Roman, the offensive coordinator, deserve in terms of really helping Lamar Jackson get comfortable within that scheme and tailoring it to all of his strengths?
So when I look at Lamar, and I think when you have a quarterback unique like him, you have to have the head coach recognize his skill set, and then, yes, bring in a coordinator, the likes of Greg Roman, that can really develop said skill set and have everyone buy into it. And so I think with Joe Flacco, when he was still the quarterback for the Ravens, they draft Lamar. They kind of, tucked in, if you will, as the running game coordinator, Greg Roman. And I think that allowed for him to kind of see the landscape. And when Lamar took over for an injured Joe Flacco, it was a smooth transition, and then you saw what you saw last year, which was, Lamar Jackson having an MVP-type season, Greg Roman being named Offensive Coach of the Year, and the rest was history. A historic season, NFL-wise, as far as running the ball, but just, the way in which the offense was just humming along. I thought that the symbiotic relationship between coordinator and quarterback was clear and evident.
The Ravens had won 12 in a row until that playoff loss to Tennessee. And I guess what I want to ask you, aside from the turnovers, and my goodness, they had 4 of them in that game, and that'll short-circuit anybody. Is there anything that the Titans showed the rest of the league after the Ravens had run roughshod over everybody that may be usable this year to try to thwart them?
I think what we saw was a team that made some big plays, got up on a Ravens ball club that was used to, once it got into the red zone, it scored, period, end of discussion. It was used to holding on to the ball and putting so much pressure on the opposing team's defense and offense because of the fact that you're talking sustaining 10, 12 play drives, chewing up clock. And so when the Titans got up on the Ravens had to kind of throw that game plan out the window. The ball control went to an air attack trying to manufacture big plays. Did they have some big plays in the air? Sure. But they weren't able to finish. And I think by the time it was 21-7, it was one of those things where you had to just say, hey, let's play catch up and they were never able to get back into the swing of things. So I think if you look at it from a defensive coordinator standpoint, trying to game plan for the Ravens, I think he's going to go over to the meeting room and the offensive coordinator be like, hey, man, listen, here's the deal. If y'all can get up on the Ravens defense, that's going to help us out. Thank you very much. And then he just walks away and continues the game plan to try to stop Lamar Jackson. I think that's basically what you're looking at. Your offense has to get so many points ahead that it takes Greg Roman out of his game planning.
Which makes sense, so that the Ravens then would have to play catch-up throughout the course of the contest. And the reason why they didn't have to do that, Qadry, for the majority of last season was because you had to account for Lamar Jackson, and then you also had to account for a nice 1-2 punch in the backfield in Mark Ingram and Gus Edwards. But interestingly, they just drafted J.K. Dobbins to add another intriguing weapon in the backfield. I'm curious, how do you see things playing out in terms of the rushing attack this season, knowing that they've just added another dynamic option?
So I think, if you recognize Eric DeCosta, what he likes to do is get as many playmakers as possible. I think Ozzie loved the idea of when he was general manager to get as many defensive playmakers as possible, and Ozzie, was phenomenal in picking out, the likes of Ray Lewis and Ed Reed, Ring of Honor guys like a Haloti Ngata, potential Hall of Famer and Terrell Suggs and so forth. But with Eric, I think the way in which he sees the vision of the offense, Dobbins is just another tremendous cog to this juggernaut. And how can he, fit in is by competing and making other guys around him better, and other guys pushing him to say, hey, look, if you want playing time, you're going to have to play better than me. I think those are good problems to have. And I'm sure, again, if you're Greg Roman, it's about, how do I appease a running back room? Well, if, again, you're, Gus Edwards, I'm churning out, 50 yards on a drive, and I got a hot hand, I'm going to my coordinator and be like, yo, man, keep me in now. Come on. I got the hot hand. But if you're Mark Ingram, of course, you too are going to be wanting to be motivated and not being the odd man out or the old man in the group, if you will. So there's a lot of interplay there in that running back room. But I think the cool thing about it, you're not going to get a guy that is going to be banged up. You're going to have some fresh legs, come the playoff push.
More fresh legs in the backfield, Qadry, but at the same time, Lamar Jackson ran for 1,200 yards last year. I would think, now this is just me, I would not want him running for 1,200 yards again this year. I think I'd want that number and those touches to come way down, especially considering the talent that they will now have with him in the backfield, and understanding that the interior of the offensive line seems to be somewhat of a weak spot. We know that Yanda's retired, and that can't make them feel very good.
Yeah, I think the competition now for Marshall Yanda's position is going to be an interesting one. I think at the same time, when you look at what they are trying to accomplish, with the running game, yes, it is a multiple attack look. So it's not like you're running inside zone specifically. It's not like you're running, power offense specifically. It's not like you're running outside zone specifically. You got a variety of different looks. A lot of counteraction, a lot of misdirection. Yes, you got some G power in there, although Marshall Yanda was the lead catalyst for, a G power type of a running game. But with that said, you're right. I personally don't want to see a Lamar Jackson, a 1,200-yard rusher. I want to see him, 4,000-yard passer, with, three other running backs in the backfield, one at 990, the other at, 1,100, and one is, looking at, 1,300-yard rushing. My God, that's saying that Mark Andrews at tight end is doing his thing, but also, the outside lanes of the receiving core has stepped up and played extremely well. So, those are some of the things that I'm looking at, what are the next steps for this offense? It's Lamar Jackson getting the outside lanes of the passing attack going and taking some of the quote-unquote pressure off of his skill set as a runner, if you will.
We're talking with former Ravens wide receiver Qadry Ismail. Helped them win the Super Bowl following the 2000 season over the Giants. Also serves as an analyst on WJZ in Baltimore. And speaking of the receiving core, Qadry, we saw what Hollywood Brown did last year and a number of positive flashes, a young guy that they could build on moving forward. But who do you see outside of Hollywood Brown that perhaps can emerge this season and provide maybe more of a 1-2 punch for Lamar Jackson through the air outside, of course, of the tight ends?
Yeah, Miles Boykin has to be the next guy up. You know what? You drafted 2 receivers this year. They're supposed to be explosive, blah, blah, blah. All I know is rookie receiver, it's extremely difficult to pop into the league. There are not that many Randy Mosses that just come in and rip up the NFL, quote unquote. You have to have a scenario where Miles Boykin has to take that next step. I think he can take that next step. He showed flashes of it. Can he be consistent? It's going to be interesting because of the way, there's not going to be that preseason for him to kind of get in his groove with, the games that we've seen or the off season. But I will say this, it's just one of those scenarios where ultimately you're going to have a competition that is going to be healthy for him and to show that he can be a dependable threat. I think Hollywood Brown, at the same time, has to be that, 1,400-yard guy, 11 touchdowns, stretch the defense kind of a player. If he can be, which I see, from his training that he's posted up, that he more than can do that, that his foot is fine, and that, speed kills. And with, again, the attention on the running game, you're going to have a lot of one-on-one opportunities to stretch the defense and put pressure on, a cornerback on the outside. Now all of a sudden you sticking them to the outside, you're going to the post, and then the safety's like, but I was looking at the running game. And next thing you know, you're getting another 70-yard touchdown pass because Lamar does such an amazing job of play-action pass.
Where do you think the 1-2 punch at tight end between Andrews and Boyle fits in this year? After last year, between the two of them, they caught nearly 100 balls.
Oh, I think with Mark Andrews, he did such an amazing job in his first 2 seasons that they traded Hayden Hurst. Hayden Hurst was drafted before him. Hayden had a screw in his foot, so that kind of, slowed him down dramatically. And so he kind of had to sit on the bench. But, I remember Jack Del Rio, when he and I were Minnesota Viking teammates, I was like, wow, my hamstring's a little sore. I didn't necessarily take off for practice, but I was in the cold tub getting some treatment. He kind of walks in there with his veteran self, and he's like, hey, man, how you feeling? I'm like, no, Jack, I'm all right. I'm good. I'm just going to get some treatment. Hey, all I know is can't make the club in the tub. And so he kind of just went on out and to the main locker room, and I kind of stuck with my mind from that point forward. And I think for Hayden Hurst, he's going to do phenomenal down in Atlanta for sure, but you can't make the club in the tub. In other words, for him, it was a Wally Pipp situation because Mark Andrews just blossomed into the go-to threat for Lamar Jackson. I mean, they just hit it off. Now, Boyles, he does an amazing job as a blocker. He, yes, is a viable threat, but Mark Andrews, make no mistake about it, he's the number one option in the passing attack, inside and outside. I think that's where Lamar likes to go, and defenses know that, and they also recognize he's extremely difficult to match up with.
Qadry, I want to switch gears over to the defensive side of the ball, and I think statistically, when you look at Baltimore last season, the one number that at least jumps out to me is the fact that they blitzed on about 55% of their plays, which was by far number one in the NFL, and I think part of the reason was because maybe they weren't too confident in all of their personnel up front winning the one-on-one battles clearly. What do you think has changed this offseason that maybe Don Martindale doesn't have to blitz so heavily, or do you not see the scheme changing that much?
So when you look at the Ravens defense and the defensive coordinators that have been over the last decade or so, and you just saw how incredibly dominant they were, the one thing that sticks out, no matter the coordinator, is we hit you in the mouth. And they get guys that totally buy in right away with hitting you in the mouth. I think Wink, for his aggressiveness and what he likes to do, you look at not necessarily, I'm just going to blitz for the sake of blitzing, but he had a secondary that could withstand, being out on an island. And I think that's something that, John Harbaugh had been preaching about for years. He would always be, frustrated when they would come playoff time and they would face, say, a New England Patriots team, and, Julian Edelman is, getting behind the defense, and, Gronkowski is doing his thing, or, you're just in situations where, the Steelers, Antonio Brown is, making life, difficult for you, and, making game-winning catches. So I think, the fact that he felt like, hey, I got a secondary that, in my opinion, is top to bottom the best secondary last year, and I believe with some guys coming back healthy, with Jimmy Smith re-signing as well, they're going to be arguably, again, depth-wise, the number one secondary in all the league, and I think that's where Wink Martindale starts the conversation. And then it goes to what he is working with up front, the fact that you got Matt Judon back anchoring on the outside. That, to me, is going to be where you're going to see the biggest difference. And, oh, yeah, that's right, Calais Campbell. Let's go ahead and just crown him already, because Calais Campbell is a man amongst men. And holy mother of pearl, does he not fit what a Raven defense is all about? Because interior, it was good, but he is a definite upgrade. And I think Brandon Williams is going to love playing with the likes of Calais Campbell. I think it's going to be reminiscent of the defense where you had Haloti Ngata and Terrell Suggs on one side of the defense. You would have an overload on the, say, away from the, to the tight end side, you would have an overload, and then you would have Haloti Ngata and Terrell Suggs. So do you fan the back towards them, or do you have the back go to the overload? If you have a one-on-one, well, basically you're screwed, because Haloti Ngata is unblockable in the interior, and Terrell Suggs is going to make mincemeat out of your tackle. Go ahead, roll the dice, see what happens. I think that's what Calais can bring to the table.